Let me take you back to circa 2013, 2014, where I'm finding videos on YouTube about anything video games related. And I stumble across a video about the one and only Stanley Parable. And watching it through, my mind was blown away with how the story of a game could be so meta. It was full of branching paths and so many choices that it felt surreal at a time where so many games were coming out that were gritty or about shooting and whatnot. And this game just did, and still does, something different to me when I watched all those endings all those years ago. I was astounded. I never thought a game could be so twisting, so winding, that it felt like walking down through infinite corridors in a never ending building, and even when you seemed like you broke the game, it was like the developer just knew you would do that you would try doing something out of the box. This was all in a middle school kid's brain, by the way. This all happened like way back in middle school. Right? But the fact that I had found something not a lot of people talked about just felt so cool. Like I had found something exciting just the same way as I had found Knuckles Chaotix back in elementary school. But I'll go more into that in an upcoming video. I've always been into weird games as a kid, like Off by Mortis Ghost or Subway Midnight by Bubby Darkstar. Yeah, I know. Subway Midnight did not come out when I was a kid, but I think you get the point, you know? These are games that your average everyday Xbox kid probably wouldn't know exist, yet here I am looking at this weird, wonderful world of video games that not many talk about. And Stanley Parable was that game for me. In a time where most games were about zombies, hell, the game of the year back then was The Last of Us, for crying out loud. Call of Duty was doing zombies, Capcom was doing zombies, there was just so many. But the Stanley Parable stood out to me like a sore thumb. Or most would say that the Stanley Parable's hallways and corridors are creepy, unsettling, and cold, like liminal space. I think of those same hallways as comforting, nostalgic, and warm. The same goes with Gmod and GM Contract, but that's also for another video. The Stanley Parable to me is so lovable and so unique in its way of storytelling, and I realize walking simulators have a lot worth talking about. So screw you to whoever said Gone Home was bad or Dear Esther sucked. Those games mean something to somebody, even if they are niche and don't let you do much. Even though the achievement in the Stanley Parable says to not play the Stanley Parable for 5 years, yeah, I know. I still keep coming back to it because it's a game that stood the test of time. And they even brought more content in its Ultra Deluxe counterpart. But even then, the original still has some things that the Ultra Deluxe doesn't have. Like the original multiple games ending from the original game. I know it sounds weird, but they got some parts changed in the new release. And the serious room, really. The serious room where you had to use the console to allow SV cheats in order to get into the serious room because it was made in the Source Engine. The Source Engine had cheats. You get the point. The original isn't obsolete in that way. They remove some things that honestly don't make the Ultra Deluxe Ultra, in my opinion. The Stanley Parable is a lovely game that just keeps on giving until you're completely done and content with the time you've spent. The game feels so optimistic that even when there are heavy points, you're able to keep smiling. Just like me. I just always keep on smiling. And the fact that this game came from a Half-Life 2 mod is what makes it even cooler. Honestly, that is really cool. I don't know, it's just so cool that it just came from Half-Life 2 mod. A standalone mod that became this amazing game that deals with a lot of topics about the will of a person that my mind didn't even think about when watching those videos all those years ago. As I keep coming back to this game, I find little details and optional voice lines for just thinking of moving to that direction or not. I think it's amazing. Like, no, I'm being for real. The fact that I can go to this one specific area that, like, even if you don't think of going, but, like, you have the option to, there will be dialogue. I promise you that, because I've done that, like, multiple times. I've been recording recently, and I've seen, like, a few dialogue options, and it's very cool. Okay. The game is littered with so many options that it feels like they covered every base possible. That even if I go back to it, I'll still feel amazing and wonderful. And I'm so glad I found a video game. I'm so glad I found that video of a game. The Stanley Parable means so much to me still. But I found it at a time where I thought video games were just so cool. The Stanley Parable was like a breakthrough to me. Like it just made me think, wow, this game has done much more, and like it was so meta, and it showed me that games can be so much more than just playing. Games are a form of art. They can be profound. Even when all these AAA title games are coming out, the Stanley Parable shines in its difference. And that's where a community can grow with it. A community can grow with a game that can stand the test of time, just like the Stanley Parable. Sure, it's no God of War, but it means a lot to me and has made me think differently about the games I play now and how I'm able to think about what a game can provide. So even when I do play a AAA title, I can see a lot more nuance and small details that games have to offer. Instead of it just being some grand form of media, The Last of Us, or well, even then, The Last of Us isn't really grand, but like God of War is a very grand game. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a very grand game. So big, so expansive, right? Which is so funny because nowadays being all meta and breaking the game seems to be the norm, which in turn makes the Stanley Parable less unique. But to me, I will always remember it as something insightful, witty, and utter genius. I still think it stands on top as one of the most heavy metal games of all time. Even when we try to betray the narrator, it feels so nice. Like, I want to see what he will say next, or I want to see what will happen next. Every time I just go back to it, it's like I know, I I know what will happen next. That's the thing. I know. But even then, I'll keep coming back to it because I just love it so much. They were right. It really didn't need a new version, but at the same time, they added more commentary to the latest gaming landscape, which makes me happy. They really didn't need to, but at the same, I'm glad to have more content. Really, I really am glad to have more content. But leaving the Stanley Parable as it was fine. I think this game will continue to make me happy for many years to come. And while I feel it's unnecessary, I think they might make a third sequel. Sorry, I know I should be speaking properly, but I like gushing about this. I'm happy that even with the Ultra Deluxe, nothing of the original feels tarnished. Sure, they added a bucket, that branches out and essentially gives you different endings. But it doesn't mean all the old endings are gone. No, of course not. The base game is still there. The original Stanley Parable is still there. I mean, of course, without some of the, original stuff, but, that's just me. As long as you don't pick up the bucket, it's still the same game. I do wonder why they took out some parts of the multiple games ending, like the original multiple games ending, as well as the serious room. Maybe because it was no longer in the source engine. Who knows? But that Face Punch Studio logo Easter egg was so cool. And if you know, then you know. Even when I didn't understand at the time what it was trying to say about players in the game industry, or even about what people do in life, I was just amazed by its characters and its way of telling a story. The story doesn't have to be grand to be exciting. It really can be just about two people who are friends, but also enemies at the same time. As if you were watching two brothers bickering about. The Stanley Parable has so much to offer as a walking sim that it feels more than just a walking sim. I'm happy and content each time I boot up the game, whether it's the original or the Ultra Deluxe. Each time I'm back at the office, I'm still running around, irritating the narrator, and being his best pal, and thinking what kind of adventure we will have next. Even if I know the ending, getting there is still so much fun. It really is, dude. And that's all thanks to the lovely voice acting by Kevin Brighting. Thank you. This game has gotten a hold on me that not a lot of games do. That it's one of the few games that I wanted to play on the PC first. And I was closely watching the Ultra Deluxe when it was announced. This game holds so much sentimental value. Like, damn, dude. Okay, dude, I'm just gonna talk about the endings at this point. Like, so if you didn't play it or watch it, then here's your final chance. You better like back out, go play the game before like just play the game. Just play the game as of now. Like, this is your chance. This is your chance to go and leave. Do it. Okay, look, okay? You know what's really funny to me? The original ending, when you listen to the narrator all the way through, it's basically the freedom ending, right? By the way, I'm doing like quotations in air, but this is the freedom ending. But you're following the narrator all this time, and it's like, are you really free? Are you really free? And what makes it even more funny is that if you do the real person ending, you get the official credits. You know, you, by completing everything what the narrator wants from head to toe, you unplug the thing, you do it, you essentially become the real person. And at the end of it, you get you get credits, like actual credits that I've never seen, unless it's the museum. But even then, the museum doesn't feel like real credit. Like, it rolls down like you ended the game. No, this one does. And where are you? Outside of the flippin' box, like outside of the game. It is sad, but that is the real freedom ending, at least to me. To this day, that stuck with me. By the way, to that day, that the real credits thing has stuck with me. You know, while the museum ending just feels like you're walking through what the game once had in store for you, and how the process of making it was. It's so cool. The real, like, my favorites have got to be the real human endings. Also the bucket counterpart towards the real human ending, which is the joke ending. It was really funny. Um, as well as the games ending, the multiple games ending, or in this case, just the games ending. It's I love the game's ending because it's just they just put in in the original one they give you Minecraft and they give you Portal, and I was like, whoa, that's actually really cool. But then in the new one, I mean, the new one's pretty cool. I just like Minecraft and Portal more than Firewatch and Rocket League, but I still think it's pretty cool. Another thing is, I love that you could like scan the QR code in the merch lab when the narrator shows you his exhibition for the Stanley Parable 2, and it just leads you to a a, a video about sequels. It's like, oh, your parents, you are the sequel to your parents and whatnot. It's so cool, dude. I love it. I love it so much, dude. It's so cool. I love that there is like dialogue that you can miss. That, like, like, for example, all right, confusion ending, right? When he adds um the adventure line, right? You can still go back to this two doors area where there's no doors at all. He will say something about it. That's so cool. That's so cool to me, right? Dude, the memory zone in the new game actually made me think about 2013, 2014. Dude, it felt so nostalgic. I got a tear in my eye. I did get a tear in my eye. You know what? So I love this game. Dude, just go get a copy on Steam or whatever, because this game is just so amazing. And it's just like, dang, Stanley Parable is a very wonderful memory in my mind. And will always stay that way for as long as I'm alive. I love the Stanley Parable.